Hello everyone, this is Vanessa Growlich. Today I want to talk about the math behind flipping homes. Let's go and talk about what to consider when you flip a home, because if you do your numbers right, you will have a profit. But if you don't do your numbers right, you might have a problem in your hands. And instead of flipping a home, you're going to have basically just liabilities, not an asset, but a liability. So let's talk about the math behind flipping homes. Let's do some math.
And welcome back. So, what is the formula to use when you're flipping homes? Well, I would like to just show you the simple formula that I have made. That way you can understand that when you flip a home, what are the basically, like, I guess, everything that you need to take in consideration. So think of this. The selling price minus the commission that you have to pay, because remember, when you are the seller, you pay the commission, minus the closing costs must be greater than the price of the house that you're going to buy, plus the improvements that you're going to put, plus the closing costs. I'm going to make a simple example, so this formula is going to make sense in just 1 second. So what does that mean? Well, think of this. If you want to flip a home, okay, a lot of many of the times when you have like let's say like you're a first time investor, you look at the house and you don't know where to start. You're like, okay, is this a good deal? Is this not a good deal? A lot of the times when I hear clients, is that they worry about the kitchen, they worry about things that maybe they shouldn't be worrying about it, because remember, when you invest into a flip home, it's completely different than investing in your own house. So the first thing that you should need to do is to be realistic. You need to be realistic, because sometimes when you buy a home and you put too many improvements, thinking that the house is going to be valuable much more than the neighbor, that doesn't work, and we're going to talk about that. So let's start first with the consideration of what to look into a flipping home. The goal when you want to flip a home is to make a home from nothing, to put it away. And when I say nothing, what I mean is that a bank will look at it and they'll be like, no, thank you. Okay? So your goal is to go from here to make the house so attractive that when the bank sees it, they say, yes, we can finance you, okay? And this is super important, because if you're flipping a home, you want this house to go from not being able to be financiable, to put it away, to make it where the bank says, yes, now your buyers can go ahead and get along on this house. So what are the things that you always need to consider when you flip a home? So there are three things, and I always call them like the heart. I'm gonna go ahead and put here, the little house. You need to remember the roof, big investment. That's one thing you need to consider when you look at a house. The second thing that you need to consider is the electrical part. Let me put a little, so the electric, okay? And finally, the plumbing. It is super important that when you see a house, you just don't see it as those reality shows, which they are completely scripted. That doesn't happen, that they just goes to the house, and remember, this is like a 30-minute show where you just see the house from nothing, and then they come commercials, and then the house is perfect, and then they tell you, oh, you do this and this, and we make this much profit. Well, that does not happen. And think about it, all of these episodes that they put, they always have a happy ending. Well, you're going to have problems too. You need to make sure that you assess the risk when you are investing in this house. So what do I mean by that? Okay, you look at the house first, right? And the first thing you need to figure out is like, okay, how's my roof? How much life do you have on the roof, right? How much life do you have on the roof? Then you're gonna go ahead and look at your electric. Well, you need to look at your panels, right? Your electric panels. You need to make sure that are, up to code. But if none of this is up to code, the first thing you should do is to get an estimate of a roofer, a plumber, and an electrician. Now, when you're an investor, you know that time is the whole thing about flipping. You should first network and get yourself together with really good plumbers, really good electricians, and really good roofers, because these are the people that are going to make your life much easier. Why? Because think of this. When you go to a house and you get estimates, that's the first step. Your first investment is going to be the house itself. If you're the buyer, you don't pay commission costs, but you do need to worry about closing costs. Even though you can negotiate some of the closing costs, you will still have closing costs. You still have to pay recording fees and all that. So you need to make sure that if you put a house, like a house price, try to put, I will just say at least like 1% of the house, so maybe between 1 to 2% just on closing costs. Just because, whatever you don't use, you're always going to use it for the repairs, section. So the closing costs, we're going to put between 1 to 2%, obviously, the more information you have, what is it called, like when you are in finance, the more information you have, or what is called the theory of the efficient markets, we do this in finance, the more information you have, the higher your probabilities of making money. So this is super important. You're gonna have to have spent first the house to get the house. You can buy this house cash. Maybe you're gonna get into a loan. Okay, maybe you're gonna do I don't know, owner finance deal. Yes, they can happen, and actually, they're not complicated if you have the right person in between both buyers and sellers. And then you can also, whatever you do to get the house, you need to consider that, but you also need to consider you're gonna have closing costs. Now, from there, let's say that your house, and I'm just gonna put an example, was 100,000, right? And we're just gonna put like $2,000, for closing costs. So that's the beginning. So you get your house, and before doing anything, you need to understand that in order for you to make money is to make sure that you're gonna sell the house that is going to be appraised at the right amount. There's a lot of people that they buy houses for $100,000, and just put in an example. They go ahead and put $70,000, towards improvements, and now the house, it's $170,000, and the market in the same neighborhood is selling house for $150,000, and then they're like, oh, the house is not selling. Well, because you overdid too much on the repair. So this is the reason why it's important to first figure it out. If your house is right here, the house that you're hunting to do the flipping, check around the condition and what the other houses are selling, because that will give you a little bit of obviously the market is changing super fast, especially right now with the pandemic, but it's going to give you what we call a baseline. You know that the appraisal value, because remember, that's where the value is, the appraisal value, like it doesn't matter how much you think the house is worth. At the end of the day, the bank is the one that says, like in Spanish, we say, quédate tranquilito, calm down. My appraiser will give the value. So we need to make sure that we're realistic when it comes to this. Now, so the first step is to identify, so let's go by steps. So the first step is to identify, the market. What is your market? What are the houses that are very nice around the neighborhood selling? So that's just going to give you basically where you're going to be able to sell it in the future. Number 2, to fix the house, make sure you get at least 2 to 3 estimates. This is actually the hardest part, to be honest, to get the estimates, to make sure that your contractor calls you back, to make sure, dealing with contractors, I'm not saying all contractors are like this, but it can be challenging because these people are just looking for jobs and just want to start fast. So if you take your sweet time with a nice plumber, he's just going to take another job, and then boom, you lost 2-3 weeks of what you had to do. Remember, time is money. Then number 3, you need to make sure that you count and you take in consideration the selling cost of the house. That includes commissions for the realtor, because when you are the seller, you're the one that pays. That can range between 4 to 6%. We only charge 4%, but traditionally some other people do 6%. Now, you also need to make sure that, again, you also take in consideration your closing costs. Once you do this, don't forget also to talk to your CPA, because you're going to have also what is called capital gains. And they can be, expensive, to put it away. Did I say nasty? No, I said expensive. Expensive and nasty sometimes can sound the same. Anyhow, this is basically some of the stuff that you should consider when you're flipping a home. Again, make sure that you understand what is your market value for the future. Make sure you estimate your three biggest expenses: roof, plumbing, right? And the electric section, the electric part. This is basically where the bank is going to go, or the inspector. They're going to say, yes, this house can be an FHA, this house can do a BA, and that's where you want to make sure that you have. Not so much how pretty the kitchen is and all that. Yes, that's important, but the most important part is that your home is able to be financeable for the future, because remember, you got this cash because you are an investor, but you're trying to sell it back retail to the market, so it's a completely different perspective. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you pretty soon.